How many of you think humans are corrupt, selfish, greedy, and the root of all evil?
If we fucked up our private key or certain reason, it's our own fault. I don't rely on certain people. I think Sam, in the beginning, he was doing something correct, but then things happen, right? And he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Where people are spending their time, their energy, their money, you can't really do the promise of Web3 today.
Why do you have something to hide? Maybe I don't have anything to hide. I just want my privacy. If you disagree, no, go for it.
An NFT is ultimately a token. It sits somewhere most likely on an AWS server. AWS does not aspire to immutability.
Like profile pictures sold for millions of dollars, which worth nothing.
Let them work their ass off. That's the argument. Should we trust human being or trust the system?
Thank you for staying with us. Today's topic is going to be about crypto NFTs, mainly on NFTs as well, actually, so slightly different from the previous ones. And we'll kick off with introductions. So I'm Adel Bhurtun. I'm a YouTuber. I do social media content for brands and companies. I'm here as a branding marketing consultant, but in the Web3 space. So yeah, we'll kick off with introductions. So I'll hand over the mic to you.
My name is Gio Everton. I feel like there's already been a really long introduction, so I'm not going to waste your time. I head strategy for a bank that includes innovation. I'm a board director for Luna PR, and I am a Web3 degenerate in my free time.
Hey everyone, my name is Brett Hornung. I currently lead Web3 for Accenture across growth markets. So I'm based in Hong Kong, but I spend a lot of time in the UAE. Essentially, it's more less on the Web3, more on how can enterprises leverage this Web3 and its associated technologies to change how they engage their customers, change their product or business strategy, and a plethora of other things.
Hey everybody, sorry for being late. Had some important conversation in the last minute. My name is Charlie from Singapore, managing partner of Lucid Blue Ventures, Commonwealth Capital. 8 years in the Web3 space, used to run the Polygon APAC region ecosystem and Polkadot in China. I've been actively investing as an angel, as a VC in the last 6 years. Have like around 100 projects in the portfolio across DeFi, NFT, gaming, metaverse, social. Mostly focused on infrastructure these days. Looking forward to talk to the people here. Thanks.
Hello guys, my name is David Iskander, co-founder of MetaPlayers, Web3 gaming company, also founder of a real-world asset tokenization company based in Dubai, so we are coming, and like an ex-esports and gaming veteran, so yeah.
Great, fantastic introductions. While we're on the topic of the digital economy, NFTs and their impact on gaming, art, culture, and beyond, let's firstly define what are NFTs to begin with, and their significance in transforming ownership and authenticity. I think we'll start with Brett. Go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, so I might take a different view in terms of how we define NFTs than somebody else, or maybe what other people have been saying. But I want to take it back to what an NFT is, right? It's a type of tokenization. So oftentimes you'll hear NFT this, NFT that, and really, an NFT isn't a thing. Like a digital art is a thing. Digital fashion's a thing, right? An in-game asset is a thing. Those are like the products and services we're building, leveraging tokenization as like the technology decision. And so when I think of NFTs, I think of, why am I making that technology decision? So it really comes back to, how did NFTs come about? Is during the mania of 2021, everybody was talking about NFTs and everybody wanted an NFT. And I think that was really good from the perspective of it taught people that there is such a thing as digital ownership. Like in our lives today, in the physical world, you have your house, you have your clothes, and you own those things. If somebody tried to take them from you, you would be like not that happy about it, right? And so what 2021 taught everybody is there is value akin to our physical world, there is value in our digital worlds. And that is, I think, the true transformation of NFTs and what it's done. And now as we think about how does this space mature, how do these products and services get adopted, it's starting with the value, starting with the experience or product that you want to build for your customers, and then getting to the technology. And I think that's what will make tokenization a big success.
really good examples there you mentioned. And after all, NFTs are after all just a digital certificate on the blockchain, and it solves against the counterfeit problem when it's digitalized on the blockchain, because the blockchain cannot be tampered with. So I want to yeah. If you disagree, no, go for it. Open discussion.
I actually think it's quite interesting if you look at all chains other than probably Bitcoin as the OG chain. You know, immutability is a premise, but it's not necessarily very true. And I think you can update the metadata. The other thing that's really interesting to realize is, I think Brad was making a very valid point, right? An NFT is ultimately a token that resides on chain, that has metadata that points to the actual artifact or piece of art or the JPEG that sits somewhere, most likely on an AWS server somewhere, right? And so AWS does not aspire to immutability. And if the server goes down, that goes down. And there's been tons of projects where founders decided to make changes to it, royalties, right? And so I think even then you need to be very specific when you define that whenever it's on chain, it's immutable. Some things are, and some things aren't. You can burn an NFT, which technically means by default it's not immutable. You can't burn a Bitcoin ordinals piece, but we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to just follow up on this. Thanks, Giovanni, to talk about this. Glad to have some fellow ordinals builders here in the panel. Yeah, NFTs is quite a big debate this year. So a lot of people get to know NFT because of profile picture, right? Whatever is CryptoPunk, Azuki, BAYC, that's just a little drop of the ocean of what an NFT can do in the entire world and the future. And what Giovanni mentioned about the Ethereum NFT, the problem is what you're buying is just a metadata. Most of the JPEGs or whatever artifacts you're collecting, they're storing IPFS, Arweave, whatever distributed storage or just cloud service computer. They can be destroyed. It's not really tamper-proof. It's not really on the native blockchain, like a layer 1. What's happening right now, there's an interesting debate, right? What is the true version of non-fungible assets, right? Which is true, truly you can actually collect, and it's not really you can maneuver around, whatever, NFT team, they want a rug pull, whatever, do some bad things and bad actors, they can't really touch your NFT as long as you hold your own keys, right? Ordinals is one of the example which is exploring and doing some very interesting social experiment. I wouldn't say Ordinals is the key to the solution to the end. They still have some problems right now with the civil war, like Cassie mentioned about this new standard called Rune. I actually had a real good conversation with him in the Ordinal Summit in Singapore a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, we are looking at a very interesting paradigm shift of NFT 2.0 right now.
Go for it.
I just want to follow up on this, Charlie. So one thing I would add how the market, the NFT ecosystem can evolve is getting more creators who is really creative. So because when we have people who is thinking outside of the box, then they can create different kind of adoption, which we need, and also the trust, because we see crazy scammers all around the space, so we need a bit of trust and also these creative people to evolve and adopt their ideas in the market.
Right. Really good points, about immutability, about it being on an AWS server. And it's true, if the servers go down, and the things that are on the server will go down with it. And it takes us back to the Stone Age. If everything is off servers, then we've got no alternative. And that leaves a vulnerability. And that's something that we, as all of us, have to face. We are not invincible to servers. We live on them, we need them. So a point about NFTs now on beyond gaming and art and things like this. What other use cases are we seeing? Maybe from a VC perspective, what other use cases are you seeing that are worth the investment in NFTs that haven't been underestimated right now?
Sure. I run a VC fund, right? So we look at always interesting NFT protocols, infrastructure solutions. We don't necessarily invest in NFT asset. I myself, as an NFT degen, I wouldn't say I'm anymore. But as a VC fund, we don't invest only in NFT asset. We don't necessarily buy as a fund, like BAYC or whatever. Although I personally owned quite a bit, I sold all of them already. So what is interesting, exciting for us is NFT is an asset class. It's a non-fungible token asset which can represent a lot of the utilities, right? The utility function is remains to be untapped. And there's also a new protocol like 6551. Basically, there's an NFT version of account extraction, and that represent a lot of the immutable kind of solutions like the birth certificate, the gaming items, and a lot of interesting composable things that you can use to carry around with your wallets, right? Things like that. So it's much more flexible, much more wider use case than just your profile picture, which you put on your Twitter, right? So I think a lot of the first generation of NFT creators looking at NFT in a very narrow-minded approach, right? It's just a visual identity or a visual representation, but somehow some data put on chain and you have a metadata. That's many more than that, right? So what's happening with NFT builders ecosystem, I see like good protocols like Double Protocol and a few others that are doing like NFT lending, leasing, and fractionalization, composability. So these are very important infrastructure as a solution we are looking at as a VC. Without this, I don't really see NFT as a narrative can really go along, grow organically by themselves. We are kind of just in the debate of, oh, this project, can we trust them? Are they rug pulling or not? If the system and the infrastructure is not ready, you have to trust on certain team, to do the good things or bad things. It's always not the end solution. Like we're talking about Web3 as a trustless technology. I do not have to trust certain people if they are rug pulling or not, and because we can trust the system, right? And right now at this moment, we see the potential of the infrastructure still remains to be built. And once it's being fully built and well established and battle tested, we're gonna see much more adoption coming.
Fantastic. Yeah, do you want to add to that?
Yes, so I would like to highlight some of the industries which still untapped or still the development is going on, so which can disrupt. So one of them is healthcare. So I don't see a lot of project yet in this space. I think medical data, personal information, sensitive data can be stored on a secure ledger, which can be one of the medical centers, hospitals, other kind of facilities. So I think this is one area which have to develop, and I think it will in the upcoming years. The other one is voting. I think voting needs transparency, and blockchain and NFTs can bring this. So I think a lot of us seen what happened in the last United States election. So at the last, the ballot voting was a little sketchy, and with like the blockchain technology, NFTs, we can implement some more transparency, which the voting system, the voting area needs. And the last but not least is the real world assets, the tokenization. This is my favorite one, and I believe this will be the catalysator of the next NFT bull run, because as we said, there was like profile pictures, like sold for millions of dollars, which were nothing or almost nothing. But now we have like assets behind these NFTs, so we can say, okay, here is a real thing behind this real technology that can adopt. So I would highlight these three sectors.
I see both of you have some views on this. Gio, if you want to take this one, go for it.
No, I actually agree with all of the opportunities. I just wanted to highlight a different perspective, which is something that kind of keeps me up, because I'm part of that kind of like initial hippie community that wanted, full transparency on chain. But now you start thinking about that, right? Like, we're going to move our medical records on chain, and that means everyone will have access because the blockchain is transparent, right? And so I think this notion of what privacy means is really, really important, and it's going to get increasingly more important, because again, I have a bunch of alt wallets, which basically are like alternate wallets under different names. I use my last name dot whatever chain as a wallet, and you can go in there. There's nothing sexy or interesting. However, picture this, right? What if your bank account was public for anyone to see if they know your first and last name, and they can just go in there and see every transaction you've ever made? And I think that's something we haven't really considered. And we talk about mass adoption. Like, these things are going to be really, really important. How do you get a balance between full immutability, transparency, but also a person's right to privacy?
I think one option here can be a secured layer. So if we built in a secured layer, then this information can be stored privately, and for the public layer, we can implement these. This can be, but the infrastructure need to develop.
Yeah, talking about infrastructure, that's something that excites me, right? As I mentioned, we look at infrastructure solutions. We don't buy NFT assets. There's a very unique number. It's called 6551. I'm not shilling it, but I think it's worth your attention if you really want to see what's the next for NFT. So it's token bonded assets, right? Like token bonded accounts, like certain interesting, unique NFT assets either could be SBT, which is non-tradable NFT, right? Issued, minted on this wallet, right? That represent you as a digital identity or some special use cases, right? So I think there's a multiple categories of NFT assets people need to look at. One is like what Brad just mentioned, the digital art, something valuable, something can go, the value goes up, once you have, the certain narrative building, right? And of course, limited supply, all kinds of things. And there's also NFT which is very functional. People come and buy or mint for the sake of the use case. I don't care it's going to go 100x. I don't need 100x. We use that for the sake of utility, right? So those are the ones not necessarily, we're going to, that will worth like millions or whatever, maybe just $50. But that NFT sits in that wallet that serve unique purpose of either access to certain community events, certain gaming, and things like that, even medical stuff, right? Of course, we need to worry about the privacy. So I think you need to deconstruct multiple things. The things you really want to put on the off-chain, you shouldn't do that with NFT, right? The things that you put on-chain, but you still care about privacy, there's some solutions with ZK and it's, things like that to open up. So people have to pay to access certain information. I think multiple solutions like that has been built around it. So NFT is not necessarily just a speculative tool, right? We have been too much focused on speculative tool in the last 2 years. And it's kind of getting to the end of that, or maybe like a half game break, right? So what's next and what's excites us is really the utility functionality and so on.
Yeah, if I could just touch on, and I'll stay away from like the investment side, but I want to touch on more like where, at least from where I sit, where I see like the next adoption of this technology will come from. And I really think if you look closely at enterprise, especially in Asia, they are getting into this space. They are putting assets on chain, whether it's a digital collectible, whether it's a piece of digital fashion, a loyalty voucher, a membership card, loyalty points, whatever it might be, they are moving into this space. And Web3 companies have this unique issue where they have really good tech, but they might not have the users. And Web2 companies might not have the tech yet, but they have a ton of users. And so as these companies are investing in wallet infrastructure, they're investing in other pieces of the stack that are below the application layer to set themselves up to be able to facilitate things like cross-border payments, things like loyalty vouchers across partners, right? You start to see like the amount, if there's 10, 20, 30 million users that are using this without even knowing it, but they're just getting the experience of, oh wow, that was easy. What's actually underneath the hood? And then as that expands, they'll start to move deeper into what people might term as more Web3 because they're more comfortable with the experience that they're getting. And so I think that's a very interesting thing from an adoption standpoint of this technology.
I just want to say, and I think that's a perfect point. I think you won't reach mass adoption if we keep talking about what's under the hood, right? We need to talk about problems we're solving because people don't really care. Most people don't really know what SMTP is or IMAP, but everyone can send an email via Gmail, right? And I think it's the same with Web3. People don't need to know what's an NFT. They don't need to know what's blockchain. Nike launched .swoosh, which is their kind of like digital collectibles. They don't mention the word blockchain or Web3 at all. Starbucks launched Odyssey, which has massive adoption. Reddit was able to get millions of users who, by the way, in all their threads, hate NFTs. And they were able to onboard them into NFTs without them knowing it. And I think that's what adoption is. When something happens that just solves a problem for you, and you don't know, nor do you really care what's under the hood. So,
and I can attest to that because I went to an event last year, Decipher Algorand, if anyone here went. And I registered and everything, and I had a POAP, a 3D version of it. And for me, I know what this is. It's an NFT, you can say. But for other users who were showing it off, this was their first NFT ever. And without even knowing, without even having to, go through a complex or complicated process, they were able to see, look, I got my first NFT. And it starts at this point of education, where mass adoption can fully flourish. going forward. But now let's consider some of the legal and regulatory considerations. Because you mentioned, Gio, you mentioned as well that you don't want everybody to see your transactions. And
Well, not mine, no.
of course, nobody wants. Everybody values a sense of privacy. That's why I'm still a proponent of cash, because cash is not on chain, and you're able to transact, and nobody needs to know where you transacted. And that's okay. It's not a crime that I paid for something and I don't want it to be known by everyone. Right? That's a sense of privacy. So how do we solve this? And how is there a way to solve this? I'm guessing that the first point of thought that comes to mind is having a private blockchain. But then that raises concerns about, oh, you're dealing in drugs, or you're dealing in illicit activities. So how do we find that balance, do you think?
I think it's really hard. And, not to go into Bitcoin, but I mean, Charlie, you were talking about it earlier. We should have a conversation about ordinals. But, a lot of Bitcoin maxis always talk about you don't need fiat. You do need fiat, right? A large part of the world is dependent on fiat, for starters. I think we're often very ignorant how privileged we are with the internet access that we have. Many people don't. And then the second problem is, to your point, many people like to transact in fiat and cash. It plays a very valuable role in society. Now, your point is it shouldn't be illegal. The issue you have is it kind of is, depending on how many quantities of cash. Because if you walk up and buy a villa for like $10 million in cash, I mean, there's going to be some questions from the bank and from the regulator, right? And I think that's part of the problem with crypto. Like any new technology, it can and has been abused by people for, whether it's, compliance-related issue, money laundering, terrorist financing, financial crime. So that's a very, very long-winded way of saying I have no answer. But once someone does have the answer, please let me know, because it will solve a very big commercial problem for me.
Sure. Go for it, Iskander.
Yeah, so I think still in this space there are a lot of regulatory and legal issues that buyers, sellers, creators, and platforms have to deal with. So there are some intellectual property rights. So if you're a creator, you have to be sure that those content that you tokenize is yours, that basically you are owning them. Because without this, you have a problem. There are licensing agreements. So if you are a buyer, you have to be sure if you are buying that NFT, you are also getting the licensing agreement with the metadata. So that's another part. Taxation, I am pretty sure that everyone here is dealing with it. So the good thing is day by day we are getting a more clear picture from the tax authority. Also we have security issues, not issues, but we have to deal with securities. As we mentioned, tokenization. If we are tokenizing a real estate, we have to be compliant with the regulatory. Here in Dubai, we have VARA. So if we are dealing with real estate tokenization, Bitcoin mining tokenization, any kind, we have to be compliant with them. And last but not least is KYC and AML. So if you're a platform, you have to do all this kind of know your customer, anti-money laundering, process, because you're also dealing with financial institutions. So I think you have to be really know every kind of these things.
Yeah, I want to add up on this topic. So regulation is very important, right? So that's the reason this year I started my Hong Kong licensed fund. As a Web3 degen, I hate regulation, right? It's kind of slow down the innovation, slow down, the liberal sense of spirit of Web3, right? Of course, this week has been also very ups and downs about industry, right? We noticed a lot of Twitter talk about the previous cycle of all the big guys, like the founder of 3 Arrow, FTX, DCG, Celsius, list goes on, right? They all either in jail or already went down, right? That's the symptom of the lack of transparency, lack of regulation. And they can do whatever they want, making something centralized, but using the narrative of decentralization technology, right? Because a lot of these protocols, CeFi and exchanges, actually very centralized. So we're talking about regulation here, right? So a lot of these guys that are kind of under crazy trial and lawsuits already, they were not getting regulated. So there was a it's a problem, philosophical problem of result and versus principle. So this morning I've been talking about this. I was debating with some people from MetaMask as well. So as a practitioner in the industry, in Web3, do we really only care about result in terms of making money, growth, or we care about the principle? Are you doing the right thing? Are you actually doing the correct thing? And is regulation is part of the principle or not? If the principle is not sound, how much money you make and you're growing how fast, you actually eventually will fail, right? So sometimes if the principle has a loophole and you're actually doing fraud stuff from very beginning, no matter how rich you get because the funding you got, like FTX, you will fail, right? As kind of the old guy in the Web3, 3 cycles already, I saw a lot of companies, they kind of build out of nowhere and then become multi-billion-dollar company, and they crashed after a couple of years. So it's a very important question. We need to think about it in the industry. So my answer to that question about regulation, it is needed. A lot of people say screw regulation, right? It's kind of boring. It's kind of people don't like it. But we need that for the sake of the better industry. Otherwise, we are gonna just rugging each other all the time, and nobody taking this industry seriously.
Good. I mean, good, really good answers there. We still, it remains to be seen in terms of how we can, find that right balance between privacy and non-privacy. Monero has received a lot of backlash for being a private blockchain, and it's been delisted from major exchanges. And look what's happened to them. So, finding the right, no one wants to be another Monero, but at the same time, on the Monero side and the Monero community, they really respect the privacy. But it leads to, again, open questions. Why do you have something to hide? Maybe I don't have anything to hide. I just want my privacy. And so that remains to be seen. A question for everyone here on brokers. So we know that the advent of smart contracts has led to peer-to-peer. So does this mean that this is the end of brokers? Does this mean that there's no place for brokers anymore because everything is peer-to-peer? Like in a real estate transaction, buyer seller can handshake with an NFT on the title deeds. So the question is this the end of brokers? Who wants to take this?
No.
Go for it.
That was my answer, no.
No one, no.
No, you never get rid of brokers, just like you're probably never going to get rid of banks either. You need an intermediary for trust to some extent because decentralization, by default, because it's not centralized, it's really hard to build long-term institutional trust. The simple example is right now, I would not let my dad or anyone that I know or trust who isn't incredibly well-versed on blockchain or tokenization do any transaction. Because today, you can click on any link and get rocked, and your entire wallet get drained, any link. Security, I mean, you guys talked about it a little earlier, it's still a really big issue, right? And then the second problem that I see is that custody. I don't think that most of the world population actually wants self-custody. I do, and I think probably all of us here on the panel do, but I think the majority of people doesn't. Account abstraction is gonna solve some of those problems, I take that, but to an extent. So I think for the majority of people, they just want to have a place they can go to when something goes wrong that gives them customer service, can reset their password, and gives them the level of trust. It's the same reason we as a bank, we've been trying to get rid of our branches forever. We can't. There's still too much demand for people who want to go into a branch and take money out of the bank. They can do that, right, at an ATM, but they prefer to go and look someone in the eye and get physical bills in their hands by a human being. And so I think those psychological sentiments are not changing. And the last thing I'll say is this, if you're like an NFT trader or collector, doing OTC is incredibly risky. Almost any big project will tell you, don't do it. Use an OTC desk. And what's an OTC desk? It's a broker. It's a broker. By another name.
The Web3 version of broker is not the end. It's just different fundamental architects, right? Are you trusting single person, one single broker, one single brokerage company? Or you are trusting the system in terms of proof of work, proof of stake, the digital distributed storage kind of a system, or so on. So, in a way, the blockchain as a technology is enabling some platform as a broker, allowing on-chain transactions to happening every single minutes, right? So, in a way, I will argue that's also another way of brokerage, right? So it's not a human, it's system, and also that leads to another. Philosophical and perpetual controversial topic. Are we trusting human more or trusting the code, right? Is coder's law really a thing or it's kind of bullshit, right? Sorry for my language. Yeah, it's like a perpetual debate. There's the nerds always argue, I don't trust people. Humans are evil. They always make bad things. I have to trust the system, right? So code is law. There's also the regulators and a lot of other, social arts kind of people saying, you have to trust people, especially when they are in the very, they're under scrutiny. Everything's transparent, right? There's nothing to hide, so you can trust the people, especially when they are in the high level of a credit rating and so on. I can argue there's like all these Standard Poor, Moody, all these rating agencies. Is this really a thing, or this is actually just waste of time, right? All these are very important debate. We need to think about it. For different use cases, we need different scenario, right? For some use cases, as Giovanni said, people just want to trust somebody. They feel like they want to trust, right? They are decent guys doing the right things. They have good reputation in the industry. You can trust them, right? They save you time and all the hassle to do self-custody, whatever, right? And you have guys, nerds like me, right? We kind of trust ourselves. If we fucked up our private key or certain reason, it's our own fault, right? But I don't rely on certain people because somehow this person will always be decent, will never misbehave. So all my assets can rely on him or her, right? So it's different type of people doing different ways. So I think it's gonna happen at the same time. So I don't think brokerage or broker will be the end of it because of technology of the blockchain happening, and also we can argue AI is coming, right? So is this the end of the human labor? I think it's another even bigger topic, right? I don't think that's actually happening. It will coexist all the time, but it will be the percentage of people trusting the system or trusting the human being. We have more solution, and I think we have more options, right? So I think more and more people would start to trust not human beings, not centralized entities, but maybe this kind of decentralized system.
I think the gentleman's summarized pretty well, but I think, as you said, the platforms is the brokers now. So basically, human nature is you don't really trust. You try to see reviews, like when you are going to booking.com, you are going to reviews. You checking them, other people, what they think, how they liked. Usually the platforms making this approach. So you go there, you check how good is it, how is the infrastructure built, and you trust it. Peer-to-peer works in different ways, but at the end, I think platforms will be there and they will take the the shares at the end of the day.
Many of you mentioned the concept of trust, and it is a key term here because we're entering trustless, but we're entering trustless for a reason. How many of you think that humans are corrupt, selfish, greedy, and the root of all evil?
All of them or some of them?
All of them.
I think, because I studied psychology in my master, and I think it's a completely non-technical argument, right? We can talk about. I see people change. So, as a VC, I saw so many founders. I probably encountered thousands of founders in my life already. I see successful founders change as well. When they get more successful, the ego kicks in. They start doing bad things. So, the state of good people, bad people also is dynamic. I wouldn't say people are always evil from the very beginning to the end. There's always people the dynamics. People is not predictable, right? So that's the argument: should we trust human being or trust the system? So I choose to trust system more than the human being because you never know. Certain people will change, and I saw crazy amount of people they change when they make more money, they have bigger fame, and all that, right? And I can argue with the specific case of FTX. I think Sam, in the beginning, he was doing something correct. He was not trying to fraud people from the very beginning, but then things happen, right? His ego kicks in, he thinks he's the king of the world, he's become the youngest trillionaire in the world, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants. Sorry for my language again, right? And he rug pulled the entire world. A lot of people, right? Because things change, and he changed. So I think that's the comment I would make on your statement.
That's a fair point. And he was seen as a very philanthropist, young guy with his hair long and his short, so people were buying into this narrative of him. But who could have known,
I think it was planned. The image, the people behind him, we see now coming out of the high standards of the US governors. So I think it was planned, but who knows? Yeah. We see the trial day by day now, so it will be interesting.
Fair enough. So trustless, and I think what you mentioned, Gio, good point about not everybody wants to do self-custody, because it does come with a level of effort. A lot of effort to remember your passphrase, remember where you put your passphrase if it's physical, and where you wrote it down, or even if it's digital. Like that's a big red flag. You never write your passphrase digitally. You do?
Yeah, of course I do. Like, come on. Like, edging it into a metal plate and keeping that in my safe. You know how many wallets I have? Like, literally, I counted it the other day. 17 wallets across multiple chains. 17 plaques, and then I have a ledger, and I have multiple ledgers. And by the way, never order your ledger or any hardware wallet from Amazon. Order it directly from the manufacturer, right? Because that's another way that a lot of people get scammed. And the very fact that I have to say this tells you that there is a lot of friction still for people to use this day to day. You need to know a lot of different things. If you want to transfer funds to buy, let's say you're on Ethereum, and now you want to buy an ordinal, which is a digital artifact or NFT. Don't say that to ordinal people. An NFT on Bitcoin. You know how hard it is to move your funds around? Like, I end up using a service that literally, as the degenerate that I am, I just send my Ethereum to a server, right, with no trust whatsoever, and they send me back Bitcoin in my wallet. Would you do that anywhere else? You could send your money, and then you just hope that it comes back. And so my point is, we still have a very long way to go before you get to truly trustless.
Very good points. I think we're down to our last 4 minutes, so I want to ask a question across the board. What do you foresee as the next breakthroughs with NFTs? So we talked art, gaming, real estate, but any breakthroughs that we haven't mentioned yet that are still yet to be seen in the NFT world?
So, and I'll maybe let you guys touch on the innovation in NFTs. I think the breakthrough, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, the breakthrough will come from infrastructure and access. Currently, it's very inaccessible for the vast majority of the population. As much as we might think it's easy to go do to spin up a wallet, right? Those concepts are not easy to most people. And then the infrastructure doesn't exist for you to actually do what you need to do with digital ownership on the internet, right? You still really can't move things around most normal Web 2 applications. And so where people are spending their time, their energy, their money, you can't really do the promise of Web 3 today. And so I think as infrastructure is laid, both from Web 2 companies and Web 3 companies, you think about like a universal digital wallet infrastructure that can actually move things around the internet. Like things like that, as those start to come out, as those roll out, then you will start to have the access. And then you'll also have probably better use cases. People can actually do things. They'll understand why they're doing things. Maybe not the technology again, but they'll understand why they're doing it. And then that will lead to adoption.
+1.
Same thing. +1 on that. Very good points. Thank you all. Unless you want to add to that, anyone else?
Yeah, I would just make final remark. I think we are waiting for the iPhone 4 moment, right? When I still remember it was 2007, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. 2007, Steve Jobs opened up the stage, right? That was a phone, that was a mobile internet devices and all that, right? They repeated 3 times. That was a aha moment of the whole smartphone industry, right? NFT as a technology or as a class, we're still waiting for a new solution that fundamentally improve, let's say, 100x of the UX, the user experience, level up the security level, and also, of course, the level of composability, flexibility, and use cases. It's not there. We're waiting for that. Is it this new protocol of 6551, a common extraction, or whatever nitty-gritty nerd terms, buzzwords we're talking about? I don't know, right? But I think the iPhone 4 moment still remains to be seen. Before that, we are still need to waiting for all the innovators and the engineers to, they let them work their ass off to deliver the solutions.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add like NFT standards. I think that will bring a lot of ancient functionality in the upcoming, and we have to follow it, and fractionalized ownership. I think that's one thing which will bring the adoption, because we're still waiting. We don't know if it's coming from a huge AAA gaming company, it's coming from a tokenized company, but it will come, and probably in the upcoming years. So we are waiting for that.
Fantastic. Thank you all. I want to thank the panelists. Thank you all very much for your time.